excuse me. I think we're all here.
Awesome.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, this is a lot better than the 2 weeks ago when we had a blow up. So if you guys can just go on mute, I'm going to read my little speech that I read before each show, and then we'll get started.
Okay, I need to know where is the mute button, where I don't see a mute.
I'll hit mute. I can mute you.
Okay, because I don't have a mute button here.
Okay, cool. I got it. All right. So welcome to episode 5 of Getting to Know You. Tonight's panel, we all graduated in 1975 and share the fact that we grew up in Wantagh, New York, and attended the same high school. Back then, we were known more for what we didn't have in common, but 46 years later, I believe we share a lot in common, including good memories of the town we grew up in. The goal of this show is to talk a little about then and understand the trajectory our lives have taken since we graduated. The show is not that long, but we should be able to get through all my questions, and it's an ish. It will finish at 8:30, 8:35, 8:40. We'll see. I'll remind the panel to please mute when you're not speaking or be quiet if you can unmute. If you can't mute, unmute when you want. When you're speaking, feel free to respond to something which interests you that somebody said. We will be taking some questions from a live audience. For those watching, there is only me running this operation, so if I miss your question, feel free to send it again. And we already have people saying hi in the stream. This is a live show, so I want to remind all the people on camera that you don't want to say anything that you don't want recorded. It will be played on YouTube in the future. People will be able to look at it. So don't say any state secrets. Give away anything you don't want your best friend to know. And finally, there are no politics. So since nobody put their name up, I'm going to introduce people. We have Lisa Fass. We have Abraham Bloom, who formerly went by Abe Bernstein. We have Sandy Meyer. Sandy Meyer, raise her hand. Yes. We have Carolou Cottom. And we have Susan Firkin. Susan, you can hear me, right? Yep, there you go.
Yes.
And Kathy Cranian. So Kathy Cranian on my screen is in the middle box. That's the Paul Lynn box. So from Hollywood Squares. So I'm going. Hold on. I'm going to unmute Kathy. So so here's my first question. I know where some of you went to elementary school, but asking the first question gives us a sense of where you guys are from in Wantagh. And I'll start with Lisa. Lisa, if you could tell us what elementary school you went to, but I have a secondary part to this question, and I know in previous discussion with you, you said, "Oh, people know where our parents came from Brooklyn or Bronx or that." That's not necessarily true with one of our persons on this panel. So, Lisa, where did you go to elementary school, and how did your family end up in Wantagh?
I went to elementary school at Beach Street a year, I think 3rd grade at Island Road, and my parents moved out from Brooklyn. I guess it's not as common as I thought. Basically they lived downstairs from their parents, and friends of theirs had bought a house, the Weltmans, and so we moved there when I was 6 months old.
Oh, into Wantagh.
Into Wantagh, yep. So pretty much a lifer till I was 18.
Yeah, I do remember for some reason, you and I taking the bus to Beach Street School.
Right. You were in my elementary school. Yeah. And then Island and the early grades, but then we could walk,
Yeah. I
which
never
was
understood
nice.
that because my mother, walked me up to Beach Street School when I was 5 and said, here you go. Here's how you go. It's just a straight road. And you
Right.
go out. So I lived at the very bottom of Princeton Drive North on Temple Drive. So,
Right.
well, thank you. I'm going to go to Sandy Meyer. Where did you go to elementary school, and how did your parents end up in Wantagh? Nope, you're on mute. Sandy, are you off mute? Oh, I can't hear you. All right. I don't, Sandy, I don't hear you. So I'm going to go to Sue Firkin, but if you want to check your microphone somehow, Sandy, and we'll come back to you. So Sue Firkin, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah. So where did you go to grade
Okay,
school,
okay.
and how did your family end up in Wantagh?
I went to Mandalay School and we moved here, moved there when I was 5. My parents were from Brooklyn and we moved on to Bayview Avenue, which was right across the street from the school. I just had to walk a little bit down to where the crossing guard was and cross the street. So, my parents moved just in time for me to go to kindergarten.
Cool. Sandy, I can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yay!
Yay!
All right. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So,
no problem.
But Sue Firkin, so you were at Mandalay. I didn't. I actually didn't know that. I had no idea. So Sandy, what elementary school did you go to, and how'd your parents end up in town?
I went to Sunrise Park School, and my father grew up in Belmore, my mother grew up in Glen Cove, so they were Long Island born and bred. We moved here when I was 3 or 4, and we stayed until I got married at 22. So we lived at south of Merrick Road down by the Jones Beach Hotel for my first 12 years, and then we moved up right by the Wantagh High School when I was in the middle school, the junior high.
Oh, you did move.
Yeah, we moved to Loughbury Avenue.
Cool.
Yeah.
Because I remember you being on Loughbury. Further up. I didn't know.
I was close. We were about 2 houses in from Wantagh Avenue.
Cool. We had somebody last show who was right across the street. I guess whatever it came out, Beltah Avenue, where the street closest to going down to the school was. They lived on the corner house.
Oh, cool.
So, Cara Lou, I know you're in Cooperstown, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask that. I'll talk about that later. But Cara Lou, tell us where you went.
Oh, well, let's see. I was brought up, actually, I was born in New Haven, Connecticut, when my father was going to Yale University. They moved to Baldwin, living with my grandmother. My brother was born. We moved to Wantagh on Jenny Road, dead end street. It was actually, our backyard was almost on Wantagh Parkway. And we went to Beach Street. And in 3rd grade, I remember going to the church on Island Road. I guess the baby boomers. The classes were too big. That's what I remember. But it was great.
Yeah, you were in my neighborhood, and we went to Island Road, but we used to go down Jenny Road to cut through the woods to get to the high school.
Yes, we did. That was a great walk.
Yeah. The place we weren't supposed to go, but
Yeah, exactly.
that was fun. Yeah.
I remember, Carrie Lou, we were in the same elementary school class one of our years. I forget what year it
Yeah.
was at Beach Street. And I believe Lisa was in one of my classes too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I remember, Carrie Lou, you were so shy at the
Oh,
time.
yeah. Not anymore.
That's, that's
Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
So, so Kathy Crinian, up. I'll take
Oh,
you up.
okay. Now I got the mic on.
There you go,
Here I
Kathy.
am.
What elementary school did you go to? Where did your parents move from?
My parents moved from Queens when my mom was pregnant with me. So I lived in the house until I was from birth until I was 20 when I moved out, and I went to Forest Lake School.
Cool. All right. So I know I'm going to ask you in a second, but did any of you know each other? I mean, Lisa and Carolou, you were friends in elementary school, but nobody else was friends in elementary school. So we stayed apart. So Lisa, to prove your point wrong, Abe is going to prove us all wrong that people didn't just move from New York.
Yes.
Okay.
I stand corrected, Glenn.
No, it's okay. It's fun. I'm just trying
Yes.
to have fun. Abe, go ahead. You got your 5 minutes.
Okay. I got 5 minutes. I was born in Jacksonville, Florida, and we lived there till I was just a little over 6 years old. In the middle of first grade, we moved briefly to Georgia, to my grandparents' neighborhood, and I went to a one-room schoolhouse there for a short while. Then Dad took us to New York. We lived with my father's oldest daughter for about a week, and then we moved to Atlantic Beach, and then Bay Parkway, and then Coney Island Avenue. And this was all second grade. I never finished first. And then eventually we went to East Rockaway. I did second and third there. Moved to Merrick, fourth and fifth in Merrick. And then finally to Forest Lake. We moved to Wantagh when I was in sixth grade. So that's where I finally got to, the best place on the planet. I love Wantagh. I miss it. And we were there the rest of the time. My dad was born in the Ukraine. He was brought here by his family when he was very young. But he always came. He was born in Brooklyn. He was born in Ukraine. My mother's a Georgia gal. Her family's been here forever.
Huh,
So
interesting.
if you go down to Georgia and you meet anybody with the last name of Hobby or Mormon, they're my kin. If you ever flown into Houston Hobby Field, Love Field, that's my mother's cousins that moved to Texas years ago, and they got rich. That's the Texas governor. He owned that land and gave it up for the airport.
Cool.
Oh.
Wow.
Good stuff. So
Yeah, me, I got no money.
so we have let's see, we got Mindy is saying Wantagh was home. So we have people writing to us and they'll be asking us questions. So so in junior high and high school, how many of you knew one another? How many of you were friends? I was actually, Kathy, I have to say, you and I were in homeroom, I think, in 7th grade or whenever you moved in. I remember being in a homeroom with you somewhere. So
I don't remember. But I thought you were the year ahead.
I
Most of
am.
school.
I graduated in 74, but I'm still your grade. We're born in, this is our Beatles year. We're all 64, right?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Oh, no.
I
I'm-
am.
Soon.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just had my birthday.
Happy
So,
birthday.
Happy birthday.
yeah, thanks. But I had Mrs. Berry, and I could have sworn that, Kathy, you were in my homeroom. But
I might have been. Sorry, I just don't remember.
no, it's okay. I'm the person with the memory. So, anyway, I happen to know this about Abe. He lives like maybe, I don't know, 10 miles from me.
A little further, but yeah.
Where I presently live. But Abe, I know that you went by a different name, and do you want to tell us how you got to be Bloom?
Well, my dad changed his last name. He picked it out of a phone book. Um, we don't know why. I'm still researching that. Something happened in the family. He went from Morris Bloom to Saul Bernstein. Uh,
Was he
between
wanted?
his second, huh? I'm sorry.
I said, was he wanted? I'm kidding.
I'm not. From Morris Bloom to Saul Bernstein, between his second and his third wife. His first wife died in childbirth. His second wife had 3 sons by her. I'm just now getting in touch with this. Their children. His third wife, poor lady, had some kind of cancer. He had 2 sons by her.
Oof.
And like 30 days after the poor woman died, he married my mom. So there's this animosity between the family. But after Dad died, I got a copy of his naturalization certificate, and I had the spelling of the name. I said, I'm going to take this back. I want to be a member of the family. Even though they don't want me because I'm not Jewish, my mother's Baptist, I wanted to at least give my kids that heritage, that link back to my grandparents, back to their Ukraine, and wherever that leads them one day.
Cool.
Interesting.
All right. Yeah,
Very good.
I was trying to figure out who Abraham Bloom was, and so it's just I looked it up. So Kathy Cranian, you're the youngest in the class, according to Elise Stern.
Elise was 2 days younger than me. So I think Elise was the youngest and I was the next youngest.
So does that mean November?
November 29th. Elise was December 1st.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember Anne Fries being the oldest in the class,
Yeah.
and in like
December 4th.
Yeah, and then Paul Carrasco was like December 6th. So anyway, so we have people keep on asking things, but I'll show them from time to time. So the point of this show is that I'd like to find out after you left Wantagh, it's graduation day. What was your trajectory in life, and that got you to be where you are now? And if you wouldn't mind taking your time, you have all the time. We've got an hour, so I'd like to start with Sue Firkin. Sue, can you hear me?
She looks like she's frozen.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear the question.
Sue
Oh,
Firkin. Okay.
Am
I
I
was
frozen?
wondering what your trajectory in life was after graduation day. Did you want to leave Wantagh? Did you enjoy Wantagh? Did you move on to what's your life been like since leaving? Can you hear me?
Are you asking what I've done since Wantagh?
Yeah. Well, yes. Trajectory means moving on since Wantagh. What have you done since then?
Because I can't really hear you, but I've watched like 4 of these shows, so I know you asked that question.
Yes.
I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi or.
Okay. Let's.
But I
take a
can
moment.
answer. Can you hear me?
I
can
can
hear
hear
you.
you. Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Well, as long as you can hear me, I can tell you what I've done since Wantagh, if that was the question. Since Wantagh, my mother passed away in 1980 while I was in law school. While I was living in Manhattan. I stayed in Manhattan. My father sold the house, and I stayed in Manhattan. I became a lawyer. I had a child. I became a single parent, and I moved to the Bronx. Then now I moved back to Manhattan, and my daughter is an adult, pretty much. That's kind of what happened since Wantagh. And I haven't really been back. I went to that one reunion that was in 2010. I went to the one in 2010 at a restaurant, but I haven't been back to Wantagh since, or after like 1981. That was the only time.
Yeah. I would be more interactive with you. I'm just afraid you're not hearing anything I'm saying. So,
I'm
so
hearing
let me,
this now. It must be the Wi-Fi. I think the Wi-Fi is terrible. I have Verizon Fios, and sometimes it's just awful.
okay. So
But
where'd you go to law school? Where'd you go to law school?
I did hear you.
Okay.
I went to Cardozo Law School, and I lived kind of near it in the Village, and that was like kind of cool. And you know, the 80s, the early 80s, I liked it there. And then I moved to Chelsea. Then I moved to the Upper West Side. Then I moved to the Village when I became a single parent. I moved to the Village, and then I moved to the Bronx in Riverdale, which was like very pretty, and you could see every bridge. It was nice. But then I moved back to Manhattan after my daughter was grown, and I didn't really need a 2-bedroom anymore. And I moved to Manhattan. I live in Manhattan now, in Chelsea.
So did you go to college in New York City as well?
Yes.
Did you go to?
Well, no, I went. Well, I did sort of. I went to Albany first, where Peggy actually went, not Peggy Sachs, and I knew her there. And then they got rid of art history. Not that I actually went into art history, although I thought I was going to. And then I went to Hunter for a semester, so it is New York City, and I took art history classes. But then I said, nah, I didn't want to live at home. So then I went to Stony Brook. And I graduated with a degree in art history, but there wasn't really no jobs in that, so I decided to go to law school.
Yeah, I think.
I'm a lawyer now. Actually, I'm thinking about retiring soon, but not yet.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that too.
And I work in the Bronx when I'm actually not working at home.
Yeah, I know Lee Callett.
Now I can't hear you again.
Lee Callett went to Albany as well and left after a year. So, but I think he went for art school.
Lee
as
Callett.
Well.
You said Lee Callett.
Yeah, he went to Albany as well. So,
okay.
All right, I'm going to go to Sandy.
I saw his interview at his show.
Sandy.
Yeah.
I hear you were a gymnast.
Who told you that?
The woman I got married to.
Oh, okay. She's right, because she did it with me.
Yeah, she said you were.
Right. I remember that. Yeah.
I did, and actually, I taught in private schools gymnastics till I was 40. So that kind of kept with it a little bit. I did it in college. That's when nothing like you see in the Olympics now. You could do a cartwheel on the balance beam, and that would get you a 10 when I did it in college. But I went to college for a few years, met my husband there, ended up dropping out of college and marrying him, and had 4 children. Went back to college, got a degree in computer science, but always kept my hand in sports. I coached a lot of things with my kids' teams. And ended up getting a job with, even though I have a computer science degree, in recreation for the Village of Garden City. And I've kind of worked my way up, and I'm the assistant superintendent there now. I have 4 kids, 2 grandchildren. My kids don't live, 3 out of my 4 kids don't live in the state, so I'm constantly traveling. But I'm having a good life. Yeah.
Do you live in Garden City?
I do.
Wow. So you stay around.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, whatever. I don't live in one of those big houses that you think of as Garden City. There's plenty of affordable houses in Garden City.
Yeah. When I told Gina you were going to be on the show, she started talking gymnastics, and she tries to show her grandchildren gymnastics, and she does walkovers and
good for her.
stands on her, walks on her hand, and I bought her 2 unicycles. and she rides around on those from time to
Wow.
time, showing them. And she ended up joining the circus um, out of college.
Bonham and Ringling
Really?
Brothers?
No, it was a small family-owned circus,
Oh,
and
that's funny.
she, she loved gymnastics, and I guess nowadays, people put so much, parents put so much into putting their kids through gymnastics, making
Mhm.
um, that they do big time.
Oh
So,
yeah, it's
but
it's crazy now, but it was fun while I was doing it. We had a good time.
yeah,
I
so,
remember sports night.
Mhm.
oh yeah,
Sure, sure. That was
Sandy,
always
were you on the gymnastics team like in our senior year?
yes,
So was
yes.
I. Apparently I don't remember a lot of things from high school.
I
I
know
don't
you and I know you and I, Kathy, played some sports together. I just couldn't
Right.
remember which ones.
Right.
So yeah, so it must have been gymnastics.
Gymnastics is probably one of them.
Right. Ran track, volleyball.
No,
Yeah.
was in swimming. A few different
There you
things.
go. Yeah.
so yeah, you were athletes, which was
Mhm.
cool.
Not much of one, but I tried.
Right, but
Thank God my children turned out better than me in sports.
yeah, it is good when they exceed your expectations.
Correct.
So and become I hated football, so I never had anything to do with football. And my son played football in junior high, high school, and college,
Oh
and I was
wow.
always scared to death he was going to get killed.
Hmm.
So, but it was always fun to watch him. I played, and I still am playing baseball.
I
So
saw that.
yeah, so I have fun doing that.
That's
So
good.
well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So let's go to Carrie Lou. So Carrie Lou, I already gave it away. You're in Cooperstown,
Yes.
which I know because you saw that I play baseball in Cooperstown.
Yeah, we tried to hook up. It didn't happen, huh? But that's okay. Yeah, but I after I graduated from high school, I went to Farmingdale College. Short-lived because I got into a car accident. I was a runway model. Worked at an electronics company in Farmingdale.
Wait a second.
But
You went past that second point real quick. Runway model.
yeah, well, I would say for wedding gowns and stuff like that. Yeah,
Wow.
it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was short-lived. It wasn't that long. But I met my first husband in the electronics company in Farmingdale. We got married and lived in Farmingdale, moved to Huntington Station. We ended up, that's where I got my motorcycle license. Woohoo! Uh, um, I got laid off from that company. I ended up working at Hazeltine. I got a great job in Syosset working for GSSD Harris Corporation, where government contracts. I was a prototype wirer, putting building computers and test equipment for the FA-18 fighters that were located on aircraft carriers. They company sent me to Australia, where I worked for the Royal Air Force there. It was a great company to work for. But 2 years into that company, when I was working there, I ended up with my first husband of 6 years because he had some problems. But I met my current husband at GSSD. We worked together for a while. He got laid off because of the government contracts were waning. I was in that company for 14 years. Before they moved to Florida, they wanted me to relocate, and I just couldn't leave New York. But my husband didn't have any job. I had no job. But we did have a lot up in Oaksville, New York, abutting Oaks Creek, which was 15 minutes away from Cooperstown. So we sold the house in North Babylon, and we just the leap in a prayer, no jobs or anything like that. We ended up building a house on that lot. My husband did find a job, a really good one. I was working at a local forest. I had my own business for a little bit. I worked at Glimmerglass State Park in the office, which was great. I just love the outdoors. I ended up working for a company called Communication Specialist, did cables for New York, Staten Island, and New Jersey. Was laid off there. Ended up working and getting a great job at W.L. Taylor and Son / Investing Associates, which was a home heating business, and they owned 6 mini marts. So I was accounts payable for both companies. We ended up leaving that after 18 years. We ended up selling the house in Oaksville, only to buy a house on Main Street in Cooperstown, about a block away from the center of town. And it was built like in 1898, needed some help. Well, we ended up selling our 65 K-Code Mustang to try to get this thing fixed. But yeah, we lived there for like 8 years. We had a big barn out back. We had a music studio in there, and that's where we had our the Council Rock Band. And we lived there for a bit, I'd say 8 years, and I spotted a rare lakefront lot just outside of Cooperstown, walking distance, right on Otsego Lake. Well, my husband and I figured, well, we didn't kill each other when we built the first house, let's build another one. So that's where we are right now. I ended up working for W.L. Taylor for a while when they laid off, when they ended up selling the company to Rabideau. I was able to find a job, an office job at our local Ace Hardware store, which I was there for less than a year, and I had to was forced into early retirement due to my cancer diagnosis. But I'm 2 years doing great, and my husband's retired, and we do travel. We don't have any kids. We just love hiking and stuff like that. When I was 50 and 60 years old, we hiked up Half Dome at Yosemite National Park. Couldn't do that now. But we basically have 2 cats. My mother's cats are 16 years old. And we also have a land shark disguised as a standard poodle puppy. And we're living the life on the lake. That's the story.
Oh, that's cool. I had never been to Cooperstown until like 4 years ago, and I really like the lake, and it's beautiful up there. And for somebody getting to play baseball, at such a place, historic place, that was amazing to me. So
it's beautiful. I mean, that was the reason why we moved up here. My husband had to be closer to the Hall of Fame.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I really enjoyed it.
I'm glad you're healthy.
Oh yeah, me too. Thanks.
Yeah. So Lisa, tell us about your life. Are you in computers too?
I was at one point. I left Wonton. I went to college in Massachusetts. Karen Dalton and Peggy Sachs and I think Darlene Duryea and a bunch of us were in the senior studies program, which we had the afternoons off, and we went and explored different careers. And I wound up going to school for occupational therapy, and I think Darlene became a physical therapist, and Karen became a social worker. So it was kind of a cool thing. And I think it was Karen and I, and I think there was someone else there too, worked at a special needs camp. And I remember.
You did. Did you work at the cerebral palsy camp?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so did Jean and Karen.
Right. We used to ride our bikes there. Yeah. Bikes that we got at Schwinn Bike Shop, of course. um, so I went to college up in Massachusetts. I met my husband. He's from around here, west of Boston. And I did some internships in San Diego and Denver, so that was fun. And then I worked as an OT for a while, and then I just sort of decided I got tired of of sick people and working in healthcare, and I went back to school and got a degree in science communications. I wanted to write medical stories for the New York Times, but I wasn't willing to just sort of take the crap journalism jobs and work my way up. So I fell into tech writing. So this was like the mid 80s when, tech was exploding, and I did some tech writing, and I was an editor at Computer World magazine, and I worked for some startups around here doing tech writing and marketing. And then I had 2 kids, and my second one, she's fine now, but she was born with a paralyzed arm. And I took her to the pediatrician. She made a great recovery, but the pediatrician, he was an older guy, and he said, 25 years ago, this would have been a dead arm, and they would have just put it in a sling, and that would have been that. But now we have therapists that work with it, and it just was like this moment of like, oh my gosh, this thing that I trained for and got a good education in was really so incredibly valuable. So I went back into that, and it turned out to be a great thing to do when my kids were little, because I could work part-time. And then it was really kind of lucky. It seemed like there was one point when healthcare was down, when they started bringing in HMOs, and it seemed like with tech and occupational therapy, one would be up and the other would be down. So I kind of bounced back and forth. So I had this very choppy career, and I was sort of restless, but it was a lot of fun. And then since the last 20 years, I'd say, I settled down, and I'm working in a school now that I really like as an occupational therapist with special needs kids, and it's part-time. And then my husband has a business, and I do his bookkeeping, and I'm his tech support person. I am now full screen. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, no, I put you on that.
Oh, okay. So I do his tech support and his bookkeeping, and I work in the school. And my mother lived in our house in Wantagh until 8 years ago on Waterbury Drive. She was one of the last 2 original owners in that neighborhood, and she moved up here. She lives 2 miles from me, so she's doing great. She taught at Forest Lake, but it was after we all graduated. Some of you might have had her as a sub in middle school, though. I remember my brother had her as a Spanish sub in middle school in like 7th grade, and that was so humiliating for him. If your mother is as the sub. And my daughter's getting married. A micro wedding in June. My son lives in San Francisco. He works for YouTube TV, getting their sports things online. My daughter works for like an e-commerce company. We travel a lot as a family. We used to travel a lot, and we're a big skiing family. So that's been kind of fun. I won a free ski trip to Europe, which was really exciting. No expenses paid trip, but then I was supposed to go. Does anyone remember March 15th, 2020, when everything shut down? That was.
I was in Hawaii.
Right. That's where we were supposed to go. So that's coming up, and I I liked growing up in Wantagh. It's interesting that you're holding this at this time, Glenn, because I think it's a good time in your life to be reflective and, for me anyway, just appreciating a lot more. I mean, when I was growing up there, and there was so much going on culturally and politically. I mean, looking back, it was just great musically and, so much happened from Kennedy being shot to Watergate and the Vietnam War. And so that was kind of interesting times to live through. And I think I appreciate growing up there more and more. I mean, it was hard for me. My father died when I was in 6th grade, and Glenn, you probably remember Mrs. Dreyfus. She was my teacher,
Yes.
and she was
Mhm.
she was very supportive. And then there were a lot of I had a lot of tragedies in my life. I mean, I'm doing great, but a lot of shit happened. And most recently, a few years ago, I had a very serious, very, very rare heart disease that's usually it's like 95% fatal. And I'm just like lucky. It's a long, long story. There's an article in the New York Times about it, as a matter of fact. And but I'm here. I'm doing great. I've lost some heart muscle, but I'm, back to work and skiing and all of that. I'm thankful that I live in the medical mecca that Boston is. And so I just think I have a great appreciation for everything. I think which kind of happens with age anyway. And I played guitar when I was in middle school, and I remember the teacher was like not cool, and we didn't learn rock and roll, so I stopped. And then when I was in my late 50s, I was off for the summer, working in a school, and I just said, what have I always wanted to do in my life that I've never done, that I was afraid to do? And I said, I would like to learn to play guitar. And it is very, very hard to learn when you're older. And I just really appreciate, we had to play those recorders and all that, but it was just so much easier to learn, when you were younger. But also, as a therapist who works with movement in children, I heard another therapist say once, if you are working with people with movement challenges, you should also be learning something so that you can appreciate how hard it is. And that has been absolutely true. But I persevered with the guitar and thought of giving up many, many times. But because I'm not naturally talented, but it's been great, and it just makes me feel that, I'm going to be 64 soon. We're all 64. Things may be harder and a little slower, but, where life is still to be lived. So we're hoping to travel, once things open up again, and hoping to have some grandchildren. Got one daughter getting married. I think my son might be getting married next year, but, he's a guy. He doesn't really.
No, they're not the same.
He doesn't really tell me the details. So I figure he'll let me know. My husband assured me that he would let me know when it happens. So
I have one like that too. He's getting married in October. That's all we know. That's all we know.
Yeah.
You know who the woman is, though.
Yeah, well, that's true too. Yes.
Yes. No, he's been living with her for a while. We know her. Yeah. So she's great. My daughter's fiance is great. There's going to be 3 grandmothers of the bride and groom at this wedding, which is really, and they're all in their 90s doing well. So that's pretty amazing. And my mother, since she taught in Wantagh, and Jim Smith, you remember those of you at Forest Lake, and we had Jim Smith as the assistant, was a principal. And so she is in touch with a lot of people, and still is in touch with people on our street. And like I said, she lived there until 7 years ago when she was 85. And so she tells me how our old house is doing. They're putting an addition on it. So, and I'm still in touch with Pat Varus and Ann Fries and Karen Dalton and Peggy Sachs and Marcy Silvermetz. So that's been kind of fun.
Yeah, that's good.
And I knew I was just going to say, what's interesting is, I feel like I knew everybody in the class. I mean, it was a lot of people, but we all knew everybody. Susan, I think you were in some of my classes, and it's just amazing what you remember when you can't remember, like, the password you said this morning, but you remember so many people from high school. So
yeah, I'm always amazed that I changed a password this morning, but I don't remember it, but I can remember 5th grade.
yeah,
Being 5 years old, or seeing you sitting behind me on the bus
right.
when we were going to school. On our parents, my dad passed when he was 95, but it
Wow.
is interesting to have parents still alive, from our time. And like Sue Eastep's mom is 98.
Wow.
Jean's mom is 95. So, it's just they keep on ticking. So,
Yeah.
and keep on going. I was going to go to Kathy Crinian next, but I can't tell if she's on.
It must, everybody on my screen, everybody is frozen.
Oh, okay. Well, we can still hear you.
Okay.
So we won't get to see your facial tics, or you can stick your tongue out at us. And Abe, the reason I'm leaving you last is you're a gentleman, so we let the women go first. So Kathy.
Okay.
about
First,
your
I wish it wasn't frozen, but it is, so such is life. After high school, I went to Farmingdale College and also worked at Levitt's Furniture. And when I graduated, Levitt's Furniture had purchased J. Homestock up in Massachusetts, and they wanted Levitt's management in there when they opened. So I was transferred up to Massachusetts, which I stayed in Massachusetts for 43 years. I just moved last month. I stayed at Levitt's for a short time, where I met my husband. We eventually married. I have a stepson, and we have 2 kids together. At this point, we've got 4 grandchildren. And I just retired in November from 32 years as a police officer up in Massachusetts. Lisa, you live in Massachusetts?
Yeah, I live in Framingham. Where did you live?
I lived in Dedham.
Oh, so I work in Westwood. I've worked there for 16 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I lived in Dedham for over 40 years. And
oh, wow. Yeah.
after retiring, we said it's time to move south. So North Carolina, here we are.
Oh, wow.
We're in North Carolina.
Town of New Bern. Once
Is
upon a time, it was the capital of the state, which it's not anymore, but it's
Okay.
it's on
Where's
the
it
East
near?
Coast,
Is it
or
near
on the eastern
Wilmington?
side.
Is it near Wilmington, or
We're about 2 hours north of Wilmington,
okay?
2 hours south of 2 hours southeast of Raleigh.
Okay, all right, but you're on the water.
Not far from it, very close to one of the main rivers, and about 25 miles to the ocean.
Wow. So you were in the police force for how long?
32 years.
Wow.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And,
Yeah, it was a good career. It was a good job.
And you're
Had its
sane.
moments.
And you came out of it sane.
Came out of it at the right time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you worked the streets and then worked your way up?
I stayed as a patrol officer the whole time.
Oh, God.
I worked the streets for, I don't know, probably 17 years. And then I also did some investigation. There was, some of the jobs, like any job, you really like, and some you don't like so much. A lot of the investigations I did, I really enjoyed. And then I worked in the station, but I was still dealing with the public and I was sort of doing both, dealing with the public and doing administrative work.
Huh. Okay. Wow. So you don't want to go back, second job as a policeman in your new city?
No. At some point, I'll find something part-time to do, but right now, because we've only been in the house for, a little under a month, kind of just working on getting things done in the house.
You got a lot to do. Yeah. I had a brother-in-law who was a homicide cop in detective actually in Baltimore. And
Very exciting.
he retired after 25 years and then became chief of police in Bowie, Maryland. So he's got those two retirements pending. So
Nice.
or he's getting the one retirement and doing the other. But I have one question for Lisa. Lisa, where'd you go to college in Mass? Oh, you're on mute. Lisa.
I went to Tufts, and then they have a school of occupational therapy there, and it was nice because it was very specialized, but you also had liberal arts courses that you had to take. And then I got a master's at Boston University.
Okay. Yeah. I'm Kathy, I lost you from the stream, but I'm putting you back on.
Okay.
So there, you're back on. I had that question for Lisa, and I didn't want to lose track of that. So,
okay.
So your life is good down there. Your kids come visit, and
well, one of my kids, my stepson lives in Washington D.C. My daughter has lived in the town that I'm living in now for 17 years. Almost 17 years she's lived down here. So I always, flew back and forth to visit. Now my son is living in Rhode Island with his family. So now I'm just going to have to do it in reverse. I'm just going to have to make the trips up there. He's hoping that within 2 years to move down here.
Yeah, that's my life right now. So my 3 are out of the state also. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Where are they, Sandy?
I have one right outside of San Francisco. I have one in Denver and one in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. So constantly visiting somebody.
Yeah.
And they're nice places to visit, though.
Oh, true. I can't complain about the places, but it's just, to have to get on the plane or even to go to Pittsfield, it's still an overnight visit from here. So,
right.
I've already been to California and to Denver. So I try to get out to somebody every month or every other month.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Are you immunized yet, Sandy?
Yes.
Yeah, that's I'm immunized. I worked at Johns Hopkins, and we had to get immunized very early on.
Mm-hmm.
So I did take my birthday trip to New Orleans. That was my first domestic trip.
Good.
So I've got my travel to Thailand and Kenya coming up.
Wow.
Yeah, you get some nice places.
Yeah, it is fun. So so I can drive the 14 miles to Abe's home in Ellicott City. So go ahead, Abe.
Okay. I was working with my dad from the time I was 8 years old in his refrigeration air conditioning business. This ties into some of you guys. He did the air conditioning at Cooperstown Hall of Fame when I was a teenager. He also did the air conditioning at the Levis Furniture. I think it was Farmingdale, maybe when they opened the new place. It was back in the 70s. And I'm in an air conditioning unit turning a valve. This big one's on the roofs. And the thing starts to shake. What the hell did I do? I fight my way out. I'm landing on my ass on the ground. And there's my dad on the roof looking straight up. The freaking Blue Angels coming straight down at us. I can see the pilot's eyes. Anyway, just to tie this in, cool. we have a smaller degree of separation than you think. I left Wantagh thinking because of my Wantagh high school, thinking I was going to go into the ministry, and I never got the call to do so. I started at Nassau Community and a business administration degree because that's what my parents wanted me to do. I hated it. It was so boring, uninteresting, didn't want to do it. And I kind of floundered around for 4 semesters. I finally switched majors to liberal arts, finished up, and I joined the Army. Hello, welcome back.
You're back.
I got into intelligence, and I was what's called a non-Morse intercept operator. And I was sent to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, Pensacola, Florida, Fort Devens, and then to Berlin for my full tour. So I was there when the wall was up, when we were an occupied city doing intercept operations. It was pretty cool, and that's when I met my wife. And we've been married Valentine's Day, 1980. So it was 41 years this year. We came back stateside and I was, hey, Kitty, after our 3-year tour, and got jobs at one of the government agencies down the road. Spent 30 years there, both of us. I got out and went back as a contractor another 7 years, and I just retired back in 2019 due to some health problems. I have prostate cancer that I've received treatment for. I have a cyst on my pancreas that I get treatment for. So I'm still around. We have 2 sons. One got married in a backyard ceremony. He's a budget analyst for the Space Telescope folks at Hopkins. And my youngest is a computer scientist, and he's doing system integration for MedStar Health. And myself, when I was at the agency, I was a cybersecurity specialist. I was evaluating systems for security stuff and writing software as well and doing database work. And after I got out of the signals realm of it anyway. So that's what we've been doing. So I've been retired since 2019, getting all my treatments and stuff and finding things to do, trying to keep busy with these computers behind me that I've built, and built an email server and gotten involved a little bit with Facebook because I hadn't touched it before because we weren't allowed. They didn't want us on talking about what we were doing at work. Shh, don't tell anybody. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're healthy.
So far.
Yeah. Fortunately, I've been able to stem all illness in my life. So fortunately.
Wow.
Oh, that's great.
Been lucky in that sense.
Amen.
So we're hitting the 1 hour, and what I like to do is ask this next question, and if you guys have nowhere else to be, if we could just answer this question, and when we're done answering it, we'll be done with the show. But so Sue, can you hear me? Sue. I like to be polite. All right, we'll go out of order. Sandy.
Yeah.
Can you you're still in Garden City, but can you think of things, some event, some teacher, something about Wantagh that you've taken in your life forward, that has stayed with you? Was there somebody who influenced your life?
Well, again, my love of sports really followed me wherever I went. So whether I was coaching sports or whether I was playing sports, whether I was teaching sports, or now my job, obviously, in recreation, just, I guess, the love of the game and what was taught from down in Sunrise Park School all the way up. There wasn't after school sports for girls, when we were in junior high and high school. So whatever I got from my love of that, because my parents did not play sports, was from the high school, and just everything that they taught, the way, the love of the game, the camaraderie, all that stuff. And I hope, I instilled that in my children too. So, I think that was the biggest thing for me.
Cool. I can appreciate that. I loved baseball always, since I was 7 years old and playing, and I'm still playing. So
right.
That's my sport.
Yes, and I also met a man, my husband, obviously, who is the same as you. He played hardball, all the way up to, he's 66. He played until he was 60. And he played on a bunch of softball teams. And between the two of us, that's what our family does, basically, is we play all kinds of sports. My kids still play sports. So Yeah, we enjoy all that. So
But did
Gene,
they?
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, did they? I know there were no after-school sports, but they did have a gymnastics team, right?
no, I don't mean after school sports. I don't mean through the school. Like right now, a girl can go on a Saturday and play for their a youth program in town for soccer or basketball,
Right.
or so there was nothing like that. Like there wasn't little league for girls. There wasn't
Right.
anything you had to do had to be through the school. So you didn't learn the sport unless you did it in the schools. And it's not
Right.
even so much. I don't want to say the sport per se. I don't want to think it's all about the sport. It's more about the team aspect of it, the camaraderie that comes to it, the friends you make. Most of my children's friends are the kids that they were on sports teams with, as opposed to just someone that was in school with them.
Yeah, we just women didn't have all that.
Mm-hmm. Right. I don't know that men had everything that there is now either, but there was much more for them to do than we had.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I dragged Jean to all my baseball tournaments and my games. She went yesterday, and she's, it's a trade-off. If she goes to my baseball game where I pitch, then I do something she wants to do, and then we come home and she plants her flowers, and so it's
You have to go see a rom-com.
Right.
Yeah, we do that, but she's a baseball widow because I play basically 11 months of the year, so it's I take off from Christmas for a month.
Wow.
So that's about it. So,
cool.
Let me see if Sue Firkin can hear me yet. Sue, how's your Wi-Fi? Can you hear yet? No, you're on.
I think I can hear you.
Okay, so the question is.
You asked.
Go ahead.
The question is, what in Wantagh affected you throughout your life?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like that? Is that what you're asking?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, I don't know what affected me from Wantagh, except that it made me know that I hated to drive. So I always had to live in a place where you didn't have to drive. So that's pretty much been my goal, is to, never have to drive ever. So that's why I live in the city. And I also wanted to mention that my daughter is getting married in September, and she lives far away also, like everyone else was saying. So I just thought that was sort of important. But that was the main thing I took from Wantagh, was that everything was 20 minutes away, and you had to drive. And you couldn't even go to the supermarket without driving. I lived near off Merrick Road, like south of Merrick Road, like across from Mandalay School. And nothing was near me unless you drove. I remember we had a snowstorm in 77. You couldn't even get food. The plows didn't even come. And I always thought after that, I don't want to be in a place where you're so stuck having to drive to get anything. So now I live in Manhattan, and except for this pandemic stuff, you can pretty much get stuff. So that's how it affected me, I think. That's the impression it made on me. But yeah.
When I was 15, I got my driver's license, and it was the biggest freedom in my entire life. And it's funny because my son is 20.
Oh, man, I agree with that too.
But my son is 27, and he hates driving. His whole goal, like yours, is to never, ever have to drive and to live in cities. He's lived in Italy. He's lived in Paris, Japan, and he lives in Philadelphia now. So he's happy, never driving. But when I want to see him and bring him down to DC for Mother's Day, I say, you need to come down for Mother's Day to see your mom. He goes, okay, come and pick me up, Dad. And that's the only way I can get him. So anyway, all right. Thank you for that. Kathy Crinian.
Yes.
Since you don't remember high school or junior high or elementary school, Is it a moot question?
No, I don't have any teacher that brings back wonderful thoughts or played in, big important influence in my life. But I loved living in Wantaw. I mean, I lived in a great neighborhood. We had, the whole neighborhood was all kids, and we all played together, and that went pretty much right through high school. We all got along. You just go outside and somebody else would come out and play. As far as saying that there was nothing close to walk to, we used to walk into town all the time. I was probably only 10 minutes from like the 5 and 10, that section of town.
Yeah.
So we used to go there, we would just walk at night, go out and walk everywhere, probably to the log. But
Yeah.
I know I'm not alone in that.
Yeah.
Nope, not at all.
No, but I mean, Wantaw was a great place. I had a lot of fun. I had a great family to begin, which started it. So,
Yeah.
and I do remember a lot of high school and middle school and elementary school, but just nothing that I don't have anything that says this is the part that influenced my life.
No, it's
kind of all of it together.
I was just kidding you.
And also, I want to say, you said you do cybersecurity. My oldest granddaughter is going to college for that right now.
Okay.
So she loves it. She's having fun.
It's a lot of fun, but you spend a lot of time fixing stupid all day long.
That's every job.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's every job.
Yeah.
Remember what I did for a career. There's a lot of stupid.
But it's worse when the place you work for makes the rules, and they're the same ones that's breaking the rules, and they won't enforce the rules. So it's like, why am I here?
Yeah, well, my son has a graduate degree from Hopkins in national security studies. So he wants to work at the same place Abe used to work, those 3-letter places. But,
I have a few friends left there. Let me know.
Yeah. Well, he's got to wait 2 years for that security clearance. So you have to find a job otherwise, because nobody lets you through that door. So, but yeah, Kathy, the neighborhoods were amazing. I mean, I remember every single kid I grew up with in my neighborhood, born 1957, 1958, 56. I remember their birthdays. Debbie Outchler is April 8th. Eddie Bickman's April 10th. Chrissy Hornick's the 13th. We were all summertime Amor children. Our parents had vacation in August, and we popped out in April. And but
yeah, I have all of my memories, even through school. I really have some great memories of living in Wantaw. It was a good life.
Yeah,
it's been a great life after that too. But
yes.
I mean, I can never say anything bad about the town of Wantaw where I grew up.
Well, that's
a
cool.
Fantastic place to grow up in.
I agree.
Yeah.
So, Cara Lou, it's your turn.
Okay. Well, I remember Mrs. Lamb in 6th grade.
That's where we had class together.
Yeah. She was great. She really was.
She had both my brothers. She had both my brothers. Really? There was nothing I could ever do to please her.
Yeah, I just loved her artistic ability. She influenced me. I still into like arts and crafts and stuff like that. My grandmother taught me how to do reverse painting on glass. I'm doing that still. As far as Wantaw goes, I loved the beach. We used to go down there when we were kids all the time. But the woods right at the end of the dead-end street in Jenny Road is what pulled me. I'll tell you, I love the woods. We used to build tree houses in there and stuff, and I was always having the mountains calling to me. Being up here in Cooperstown, it's close to the mountains, not too far. But I just love the outdoors and whatnot. So when my husband misses the beach more than I do.
Yeah. So the woods that you went to are the woods that were behind my house as well, Temple Drive, the Seaford Oyster Bay area, or or on the other side of Wanta Avenue, that
On
woods.
the other side of Wantor Avenue, near Wantor Parkway.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That
Because
was great.
when I was a little kid, behind my house were farms. They were, there was no Seaford Oyster Bay Expressway. They were just farms that they ended up closing down and
That's
and
interesting.
then tearing down. And we always played Ring Alivio and hide and seek, and and until our parents yelled at us and said, get in the house. I used to get in before my mom got to my middle name. I didn't want anybody knowing what that was.
I don't have one.
But so Abe, what do you remember? What
Well,
influenced you?
I had a lot of good teachers over the years. Some were fantastic, some were eh. Two teachers I remember most because they influenced my life. And you guys are gonna laugh. I think her name was Gail Nathanson. She was a typing teacher.
Oh, geez.
Oh yeah.
You're like the fourth person who said that.
But the thing is, those manual typewriters, I still type like that. I type really hard. But me and a buddy of mine in the class, we finish our work early and we do an extra little sheet and stick it in with the papers. And they're saying things like, I think you're beautiful. Or I love you. Or what have you. And she'd be grade the papers. She'd look up, look around the class. But it's the one class I've used every day. The other class, and I really didn't want to take a foreign language. I took German mainly because my father spoke Yiddish. And I was hoping I'd have some self-defense for that. I'd learn something. And I was a German German 1 and German 2 class with Walter Gross. And he was fantastic. Unlike most other language teachers, he would explain things to you first and then tell you how it works. I remember taking French in 7th grade, and the teacher says, in this class, all en français, and you couldn't ask a question in English. I didn't know what was going on. I got 4 F's and a D in 7th grade French. I went for extra help, and she says, what don't you understand? I said, I don't know what I don't know.
Was
but
that
Walter Gross,
Livingston? Madame
I'm sorry?
Livingston? I'm trying to remember which teacher that was. Madame Livingston.
It might have been.
French. She was French. Yeah.
Yes. So Walter Gross would explain things to us, and it was, I think, 4 of us in the class. Me, Tommy Fuchs, 2 young ladies who were like a grade 2 behind us, and a fellow named Doug Among. And Herr Gross had us learn how to read the old style German writing, the old style script. And it was nice. He said, you're never going to see this. Okay, but I get to Berlin, of all places. I get married in Berlin, of all places. My wife and I move out of the economy, and we're in this German apartment. And I'm told the landlady doesn't speak English. Don't bother her. But I need another key. So I went up to the door and knocked on the door. It says, Bitte, mein Frau, ich muss ein anderer Schlüssel für meine Frau, an extra key for my wife. She says, okay, come in. And I'm standing there waiting in her apartment because she's 2 floors up from me. We were in the basement. And she's looking around, and there's a book, a big book about like this big on the table. I asked her, is that some Bible? Is that a Bible? She says, yeah. She says, well, you can't read it. So I open it up, and it's the old style German writing. And I start reading it. And she's like, her jaw drops. She says, my daughter can't read that. After that, we were best of friends, and she took extra good care of us. Not because I could speak it very well, not because I was smart, because I could read that crusty old writing that her daughter couldn't. Her daughter could speak 5 languages fluently out of high school and couldn't read this stuff. So yeah, it made a difference in how we were treated and the lady that watched out for us. So I appreciate that. The history stuff, the math stuff was nice. I didn't do computer science. I didn't do all the A-track stuff. I was a B track, some A B track mostly. I didn't know how smart I was. I recently got into Mensa just because I
Oh.
wanted to try, to see what would happen. But I never thought very highly of the extra bright. I never thought very badly of the extra dumb because I knew that more people are in the middle and anybody can learn to do anything. Because I learned computer science from the scratch, from the ground up. I bought an Apple II computer, taught myself how to program, and then changed career fields at the agency and got into programming and got into databases and system admin stuff and got into cybersecurity. So it's possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, those two teachers, Gail Nathanson, so I use it every day. God bless Gail. And Walter Gross.
Yeah, and I have to say, if it weren't for computers and being able to program, my life would be very different. So even though I have a degree in public health, it was computers that made all the difference and the ability to move from within my career spot. But
My dad wanted me to get in refrigeration air conditioning. I
yeah,
could do it when I was younger, but those compressor 200 pounds up a ladder,
yeah.
I did it when I was 18.
Yeah. So Lisa, what influenced you? I know that you spoke a little bit about your thoughts about Wantagh, but
Yeah, I think teachers, Mrs. Dreyfus, I remember, that was the year my father passed away, and we used to stay after school, and she had a knitting club, and I learned to knit, and I still knit. So I remember that. And then in middle school, the girls had home ec, and I had Mrs. Marvin, and that I really enjoyed that, and I love to sew from that class, and I've been quilting for many, many years, and I've always sewed, and so that was a nice thing to learn. And typing, yes, Abe, I think about that too, that was like one of the most useful classes I think I had was at Mrs. Delman, and
yeah,
I work with some kids on typing, and I just the last week I was saying, when we learned typing, the teacher would stand up in front of the class and yell A, S, D, F, and you had to type it. And then I told them about like carbon paper and the whiteout because they were complaining that these kids were complaining that they hate using the shift key because it was too much work. And I broke into
some of the typewriters didn't have the letters on the keys.
They didn't.
So you couldn't look down at your fingers to see what letters you were typing. You had to look at the poster there was a poster like next to the blackboard that had a picture of the keyboard. So you'd be looking up, trying to feel where the letters were.
Right, so that
you would said one of the most helpful classes, useful classes.
Because who knew we would all be typing like this? But they did that so you would be forced to learn to touch type. They would put caps on the keys.
My mom would put caps on the keys, and she said, "You're going to learn how to type." Damn it!
Does anybody's? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Does anybody's kids make fun of how slow they type? I thought I was a pretty decent keyboarder, and then my kids are like, "Are you kidding me?" It's like it's just like amazing, how quick they get it, and texting too. That
texting.
Yeah,
they're learning at an earlier age.
Oh, definitely.
My oldest had a computer at 2 years old. I gave him an IBM AT at 2.
Right.
Yeah, I was in a kindergarten class, and they have these programs where they learn coding, and it's just like trial and error of making a little cartoon character go down a path, and they learn this works, that works, to make something happen. So they're starting at age 5. But the other thing, looking back about Wantagh was things that we sound like such old farts, but just the fact that like when you were 11 and 12, you could be a crossing guard. I mean, they would never ever allow that now for legal reasons. And we would go outside and play. I just felt we had so much more independence and responsibility, and that was a really good thing. And we used to ride our bike to the beach. We could take the bus. We could go to Roosevelt Field. We could go to the beach. Every Friday night in high school, I'd walk to the movie theater with friends. And, also, I mean, we'd go to like Steak and Brew when we were 16, 17. No one checked anyone's ID. They'd serve us, pitchers of sangria. It was, and then I remember like standing outside the liquor store and you'd ask, random adults to buy you liquor, and they did it. Now they would probably like take your kids away from you if you did that. And, like we'd stand outside the movie theater and parents, older people going in, and we'd say, it's in our movie, can you take us in? Oh, sure. And whatever your feeling is about that, I just think that we were a lot more independent, walking to school. My mother was a single parent and she worked as a teacher, so I never ever got a ride. But the things that were not great, like, all you women, we couldn't wear pants till we were 13. We walked into school freezing our butts off. It's 10 degrees out. You walk into school and you weren't allowed to wear pants. So in high school, I remember Mr. Bennett I really liked. I just remember we did this book of 4 anti-war novels, and he just sort of awoken me a little bit to what was going on, just in the world and in the country. And then, there are a lot of teachers I'd like to go back to apologize to, because we gave them trouble or we laughed at them. And I think by the time I was in senior year, I just couldn't wait to get out of there, because I just felt it had all those wonderful things which are great for kids, and I appreciated it when I had my own kids, that it would have been nice to have a lot of those things. But I also felt like it was, the suburbs and, just not that exciting. So I was really looking forward to going up to Boston and going to college and traveling and getting to see the world somewhat. And so now, like, again, and my mother would always talk about Wanta all those years, and I was so sick of hearing about it for a long time, because she was taught there and she was so invested in it. But now it's like I do appreciate it more, the values of it. And Wanta now, I mean, it continues, I think, even has a stronger reputation of having very good school system. The housing prices, I think, have gone up quite a bit there, because it's like some blue rated or blue ribbon rated school system. So it's done very well in that regard.
Yeah, I
I
would
still go back to Wantor and visit. My dad still lives in the house I grew up in.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
that's cool.
Wow.
What-
I would
Did
have
anybody
never
else?
I would have
Did
never
anyone-
thought that anything not on the water would sell for $1 million in Wonton. We all have this story. My parents moved into Wonton in 1949, and my grandmother moved next door. So, built-in babysitter. And so they paid $5,400 for each house. And, and then now that same house I saw listed for, just gobs of money, just ridiculous.
I know, it's crazy. Like, we couldn't afford to live there now.
Well,
No.
that's why so
crazy.
many
Yeah.
people bought their parents' house. They,
Yeah.
some of the people I've been talking to online have said, I live where I grew up, and
Rent
I
control.
bought my parents out. Yeah.
Yeah, we tried doing that. My mother and my stepfather ended up getting a travel trailer and a trailer. They just said, whatever's in the house, you sell it, get rid of it. We don't want anything to do with it. So me and my 2 siblings had to sell the house. Unfortunately, we couldn't keep it in the family, but yeah, it would have been nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's
But,
so I just wanted to thank you all for being part of this. I know it's kind of out of the blue to start asking people to be on this. I do believe that during COVID, I've been stuck in this damn house. I live right on the water, and you would think that I would never get tired of the water. But just today, we had a meeting, and they're saying, you have to come back to work. And I'm going, when? So, in order to go into work right now, you have to fill out a request and be in a time frame, and you can't cross people. And even though you're immunized, but I but because of COVID, I felt I that we're all alone, but we're all together. We have more time to get to know one another and be on
Yeah.
Zoom. And I hate Zoom. I start every day at 7 on Zoom, so it's tough. But
Yeah, it's,
go ahead,
no,
Kira.
it's been hard. We have the rock and roll band, and this past year or so, it's like really hard, going out there and doing gigs and stuff. But we're so glad that it's finally opening up.
Yeah, it's
Gonna-
so. Do you want to know the Hopkins School of Public Health view on this?
Sure.
I get your vaccine and get a booster because
Yeah.
it's going to be with us forever, and
Mhm.
it's variants and I could
Yep.
go on, but it's just anyway. I want to
So,
thank you all for being here. It's been stellar growth. We're booked through August at this point.
Wow.
oh.
That's wonderful. That's
So
wonderful.
the
When are you going to be interviewed, Glenn? I'm very curious about what you've been up to.
Yeah, have Jean do the microphone.
Yeah, yep.
no, Jean. The reason I do this on Mondays is because she's in New York on Mondays. So she works 2 days a week in New York and drives back home, and
Oh wow.
she has
Wow.
no interest in ever being in front of a microphone. I have to drag her to my baseball games. You think she's going to do this, but no. I got to marry my first love,
Oh, that's so nice.
That is
and
nice.
and Facebook did it, and when Facebook was new, you were able to find people a lot easier, and so I found her, and Jean was only 3 blocks away from me, and we were growing up, and in kindergarten she had Mrs. I had Mrs. Weaver, and she had the teacher straight across the hall from me.
Mrs. Edwards, I think she was in my
Right.
class.
Yeah, and you were, right across, the hall, and it was, fell in love ever since. So, but had 2 kids with someone else. But anyway, so my life is travel, and that's the someday I'll talk about that. But anyhow, next week we have 2 shows, Monday and Tuesday. Um, there were a whole bunch of people who couldn't do Mondays, so they're doing Tuesday. So,
Oh,
and then we had a canceled show from last Monday, so that'll be what we're calling the I oh gosh, I should look it up here. Donna Napolitano, Howard Bennett, Mindy Kahn again, Donald O'Day, and Elise Stern will be
good.
on the Monday show. So I do appreciate it, and I will now say goodbye to everyone, and this will be recorded, and you can share it with people. So
Thank you for
Wonderful.
doing
Thank
this,
you. It was
Glenn.
so much
Thank
fun.
you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Good to
Thank
see
you for
everybody.
you.
Nice to see everybody.
all right, bye.
Always a
Bye.
pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
How do I get out of this thing, right? So long.
Are we off?
Not quite yet.
Everyone's frozen on mine.
It's just me and you on mine.
Maybe it's just the two of us then.
Just the two of us. Did you ever have Bob Drew for teacher?
Who?
Mr. Drew?
I don't know.
Okay. Social
I
studies.
remember a handful of my teachers, some that I really liked, some that weren't so great. But as I said, none of them really have a lasting, I remember my kindergarten teacher, my 3rd grade teacher, who I thought was wonderful, my 5th grade teacher, who I didn't like.
On one of my test papers, on my essay, he wrote, "This is BS."
Really?
Changed my life
Wow.
because I oh shoot, He wants me to work.
Yeah.
Anyway, be well.
Thank you. You too.
I think you click on the bottom. It says leave studio.
Oh, there it would be. Okay, Abe. Nice to talk to you.